Hey, hello everybody. Not sure if people are popping in yet, but if you are, welcome. This is Scott Nielsen and Alejandra at Ames, and this is our session on Everybody Codes, how we're going to use playful movement to introduce early coding skills. We'll probably wait another minute or so to see if people are jumping in. In the meantime, you are going to need two pieces of 8.5 by 11 paper. So just, I don't even need to do that. Maybe just hold up the paper. So just regular sheets of paper. You're gonna need two of them. So as people are coming in, if you want to grab a couple of pieces of paper, and you know what? They don't have to be blank. They don't have to be white. And actually, they don't even really have to be 8.5 by 11. You need two sheets of paper. If you got a printer nearby, grab a couple of those pages. That's really all you need. We'll probably start in about one more minute. So welcome everybody. I hope you had some fun doing ramps and rollers. That's always a fun activity. I took a roll of paper towels and was rolling them down the stairs here at the Ames Center. That made a nice thumpy, satisfying sound as they kind of rolled down the stairs there. So once again, if you're just joining us, you're going to need two, not one, but two, just pieces of printer paper, 8.5 by 11. Doesn't have to be blank, doesn't have to be white. Just grab a couple pieces of paper. We're going to do a little bit of folding together. And I think we'll go ahead and start. So welcome. My name is Scott Nielsen, and this is...
Hi, my name is Alejandra Alvarez.
All right, and we are at the Ames Center for Math and Science Education in Fresno, California. And the first thing I'm going to ask you to do with one of your pieces of paper is to fold a frog. So let me show you what that looks like. So here is an origami frog that I have made. I'm going to show you several different angles. And your challenge is to see if you can replicate this frog. So I'm purposely not giving you any instructions right now, but can you take your piece of paper, and I'll give you a couple hints. You don't need to cut it in any way. All you need to do is fold. And I want you to see if you can replicate this frog. Okay, so here's my little origami frog I made out of a piece of binder paper. See if you can replicate that. And I'll give you maybe a couple minutes to do that. If you're just joining us, grab a couple of pieces of paper, and with one of them, see if you can fold it to make this frog. Decorations are extra, that's bonus points. But if you can do that, that'd be great. So see if you can do that. I see a lot of people saying hello in the chat. Hi, everybody. See people from Fresno. We're in Fresno. Got somebody from Imperial down in Palm Desert. Nice. Been down there quite a few times. Bakersfield. Welcome to Fresno from the Bake. Used to live in Bakersfield for a little while. Great. Got somebody from the Bay Area. Ooh, San Antonio, Texas, outside of California. Absolutely great. Thanks for joining us. So I'm keep wagging my frog around here. I'll probably give you, let's go one more minute and see if you can replicate the frog. And again, if you're just joining in, you're going to need two pieces of paper, and with one of them, make the frog. Okay, about 30 more seconds, and we'll move on. So we're doing a little fold a frog here. See if you can replicate my frog. No cutting necessary, just folding on a regular piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. All right. Wow, we have somebody from Australia. Fantastic. And San Diego and Fresno. Such exotic locations from everywhere around. All right. This is tricky. Absolutely, it's meant to be. Yay. All right. So let's go ahead and jump in. So everybody codes, and we're going to use some playful movement to introduce early coding skills. In the chat, real quick, give me a yes or a no if you were able to make the frog. So just a simple yes if you got a frog or something that looks kind of close, and a no if you were not able to do it. Let's see what we got here. Hello from West Covina. All right. Okay, what does that say? Can. All right, simply yes if you made the frog, no if you did not make the frog. I know there's a little bit of a delay, so it might take you a minute to respond. So in the chat, put a yes if you were able to do the frog, no if you were not. All right. So Susie says, no, mine does not look like yours. That's okay. All right. We got another person from Texas. All right, so let's do this. Grab your other piece of paper, and now let me show you how to make the frog. All right, so we have just a blank piece of paper, and we're just going to do some folding. So here's step one. I'm going to put this in portrait mode, so the long edges are on the side, the short edges are on the top and the bottom. I'm going to grab the right-hand corner, and I am going to fold this down to the left edge. And I'm going to make a fold that makes a diagonal crease and a large triangle. Okay. Now I'm going to, after I've made that crease, and I'm going to encourage you to play along here. So take your second piece of binder paper and follow my instructions if you want. Now I'm going to unfold this. I'm going to do the exact same thing going the opposite way. So left-hand top corner, fold it down to the right-hand edge, and make that crease. And so we have a large triangle here with a rectangle at the bottom. I'm going to unfold that, and now I have two creases that make a large X right in the top center of the paper. Okay. Now I'm going to turn my paper over. So I have kind of a little pyramid peak pointing up. Now I'm going to take the top two corners and I'm going to fold them down. And what I want is the top of this X, I want the top to sit right on top of the bottom. So as I fold that down, and I'm going to make that crease, and if I've done this right, I'm going to have a horizontal crease. When I unfold this, it goes right through the middle of the X. So here's my X folds, and the horizontal crease goes right through the middle. Okay. Now I'm going to turn my paper back over. And what happens now is that horizontal crease that I just made kind of wants to pop up. And so I'm going to let it, and I'm going to push those together. And then the top part of the X is going to fold out. And I end up with a very large triangle like this. Okay, so if I look inside of there, so here's the creases that popped into the middle, and it kind of makes a little pocket in there. And now I have a large triangle on the top with a large rectangle at the bottom. All right, next step, I'm going to take this right-hand corner that's raising up a little bit, and I'm going to fold that up to the peak of my triangle, and that's going to form a smaller triangle right here. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So now I have 2 matching triangles. We could talk all day about attributes of these triangles. There's a lot of right triangles here. This is a right angle, and this is a right angle. These 2 triangles together make a large square. If I turn this a little sideways here, I have a large square. Kids might call this a diamond, but we all know there's no such thing as diamonds in math. It's just a square. Okay, next step is I'm going to take, you may have even made a paper airplane like this at some point in your life. We're going to deviate now, and we're going to go back into frog mode instead of airplane mode. We're going to take this right-hand side. I'm going to fold that so that it's in the middle. And if I do that the right way, this diagonal edge will fold over and match the edge of this triangle. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. How are we doing in the chat there, Alejandra? Any comments we need to know about?
Great. I think people are just really focused on making their frogs right now.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm almost there. 2 more folds. Okay, so I'm going to take the bottom square part of this shape, and I'm going to fold it up. And the bottom edge of the paper now is going to go right in between these 2 corners. And the crease for that is also going to be right at the bottom edge of this diagonal square here. Okay, so it kind of covers up half of that diamond-shaped square. Now I'm going to take that and fold it back on itself, just halfway, and there's my frog. So these are the back legs, and here's the top part, that is frog's head. And then 2 ways to see this. Sometimes I see this as a mouth opening up, or you could see this as the front legs of the frog, either way. And the only thing left to do now is decorate your frog. You can put a couple eyes on your frog. If you see those as the legs, maybe he's got a smile here. I don't know. This frog turned out to be kind of goofy. He's getting decorated a little too quick. Okay, so there's the frog. So how about now in the chat? Why don't you put yes if you were able to do the frog, and no if you're still having some challenges with the frog. Yes if you've got a nice folded frog. No if your frog looks like it had some issues. Okay. So here's my 2 frogs.
It seems like the second round, folks were able to keep up with the steps a little bit more than the first round.
Well, it's because there actually were some steps, right? Rather than just, here, do this. Mm-hmm. All right. Super. Well, thanks for playing along, and we're going to continue doing some playing. But let me share why we're here, what we're going to be doing in this session for the next 40 minutes or so. So once again, my name is Scott Nielsen. I'm here with Alejandra Alvarez. We're from the Ames Center for Math and Science Education in Fresno, California. And what we want to do today, the big idea is that we want to share several playful activities that help young children use everyday movement to explore spatial language, direction, and sequencing. We're also going to explore ideas of early coding and connect to ways in which educators and caregivers are already coding with young children throughout their daily routines and activities. So one thing you might be wondering is, what's the deal with the frog? Why did we do the frog? And the idea there is to really think about the commands that we used with the frog, especially when I was giving you those instructions. We started with a really challenging task. It might have even seemed kind of undoable to some people. Like I just said here, make the frog. Those are some instructions. But then the second time through, I really broke the task down and sequenced some directions so that we broke the big problem into smaller parts. And there was a sequence to those parts, and the directions were much more explicit and specific. I tried to use a lot of math vocabulary that hopefully everybody would understand, and paid attention to the order. And again, took a big problem and broke it into small problems. And that's really what coding and computational thinking is all about. So those are a couple of phrases that I've used already, coding and computational thinking. And before we go any further, I want to make sure we actually define what we're talking about, because sometimes those phrases get used in different ways. So when I talk about coding, I want to talk about it as a language that we use to give step-by-step instructions to a computer. And computers come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, including human computers. I'm a computer, Alejandra's a computer, we're all computers because we compute things. And then what is computational thinking? And we think of that as a set of thinking skills that we use to solve problems and design systems. So that's why we did the frog, is just to kind of get us in that mindset. So now I'm going to hand it over to Alejandra, and she's going to share with us a tool that we've used with young children to get them talking about coding and how we build up to that.
Thank you, Scott.
Yep.
So what we're going to show you, what we're going to start off or continue our session with now is we're going to show you the MetaLab robot, the different parts to this robot, how it works, and how we use it with our youngest students that we work with. And so you're going to see when we use this kit, how the commands that we give the robot are deconstructed, how they're sequenced and communicated through code. And this particular kit is not, it doesn't require a screen. It doesn't require any reading or writing. So it is very accessible for our youngest students. Now, I want you to keep in mind that this is just a tool that we use. We are not sponsored by MetaLab. We're not promoting it in any way. We're just showing you an example of a developmentally appropriate coding kit that young children can use. There are many out there that you can use. So I just wanted to put that out there. Now, I also want you to, before we show it, I just want to express that this kind of activity using this kit is very much, an end goal. We want to get the kids, we want to develop skills in the children to be able to then later use a kit like this. So we're going to start off to show you how this kit works, how we program the robot to move around, what the different parts are. And then we're going to go ahead and show you how we, when we're working with young children, how we build up to this. So Scott's going to go ahead. He's going to help us out here. So this is the robot that he's showing us there. It's that little round machine there with a little character in there. That's our robot, right? That's what we're going to be programming with code to move around. And so the robot moves around on this nature map that's very much arranged in a grid. Okay. So this kit also has a command tower. It also has this little character up there. And the command tower is connected to the control board. And the control board is where we put the commands down, right, for the control tower to read and then to communicate to the robot to move around. Now, this particular kit comes with a lot of different types of commands that you can give the robot, right, with these tiles. These tiles are the different commands that we can use to create codes. We don't, with our youngest children, we don't use all of the commands in the kit. We very much pick and choose the ones that we think are the most appropriate. So the tiles look like this, right? We have different symbols, these arrows that show directions. So the one that Scott was just showing us was the forward tile. This is the backward tile. This is the turn right tile. Turn left tile. There's also those number tiles. Here we have the numbers 2, 3, and 4 that essentially when we use those in the code, it's telling the robot to do something a certain number of times. And then we have these last 2 tiles, which has like a go or a play symbol and a stop symbol. And those are the tiles that we use to program the robot to do loops. And loops are essentially, we use loops in coding to direct a computer to just repeat a sequence of commands over and over and over again, a certain number of times, right? Either 2 times or 3 times or so on. So those are the different parts of this particular kit. As you can see, Scott's already starting to create a code there. He's using the different direction tiles there to create a code. So he used the forward tile, the turn right tile, the backwards tile, and then he put that number 2 tile down under the backwards. So let's see what happens. Let's see what the robot does when we press play. So it's going to move forward. It's going to turn right, move backwards, and it moves backwards twice because he programmed it to move backwards twice with that tile. So as you're seeing the robot moving around, you can already start to get a sense of why this nature map is arranged as a grid. Every time the robot moves, it's moving 1 space forward or 1 space backwards. So that's something to keep in mind as we continue our session today and show you some additional activities. So now Scott's going to go ahead. He's going to show you how to program the robot to do a loop, right? So he put the play tile or the go tile at the beginning of that code. He put the stop tile at the end of that code, and now he's putting the number 3 down under that go tile. So the robot's going to be programmed now to do this sequence of commands 3 times. It's doing it 1 time, a second time, and a third time. And as it was moving, again, you're seeing how every time the robot moved forwards or backwards or took a step, it's moving from one spot in the grid to another. So another way that we use this robot, and it seems like it's a really engaging way, the children really like doing this, is that this particular kit allows us to draw with the robot. So the robot, the top comes off there and there's a little hole in there, and those thin Crayola markers fit perfectly in there. So we can put the Crayola, the marker in there, put the robot on a piece of paper, and when we program it to move, to follow that code, it's drawing, as it's moving, it's now drawing the lines of its movement. So when the children are doing this, they're able to see the lines that the robot's creating as it's moving, which is very much connected to a lot of other math skills, writing skills, and so on. So again, keep in mind that when we're, when we're working with young children, we don't jump right into a kit like this, especially for our youngest 3, 4, 5-year-olds. This is like an end goal, right? We want to build up to this over time. Okay, so what I want to show you right now, we're going to go ahead and close that camera. I'm going to show you some photos here, just of some children that we work with using the kit, and you can really see, how in these photos, especially at the beginning when the children are first getting comfortable with this kit, it's really them putting tiles down, creating codes quite randomly based on whatever child they want to explore, whatever command they want to explore, creating those codes and just seeing what the robot does. That's really kind of at the very beginning, it's like the more fascinating part. Later, as the children get used to the different parts of the kit and familiarize themselves with what the robot does, then they can start to problem solve. They can start to create a goal, come up with some kind of goal of what they want the robot to do, plan this out beforehand, think about what are the commands that they need to use in their code to tell the robot to do that, and then test it out to see if their code actually did what they wanted the robot to do. So that's more of a guided exploration there, where perhaps they're prompted by their teacher to create a shape. For example, you can see in the photo on the right, the child there was trying to create a rectangle. And he's almost there, but he had this plan ahead of time that he wanted to create the rectangle with the robot, and he was able to do it. And step by step, he was able to create the code to do that. Okay. So again, that is an example of a robotics kit that we kind of build up to. Okay, so now the question is, how do we get there? How do we get the children to engage with a tool like this, and to get to a point where they are feeling really comfortable creating these codes for the robot, and perhaps problem solving and thinking ahead, planning of what they want the robot to do. So before learning to program the robot, we need to experience what it's like to actually be the robot. And so first, we move those concepts and skills to an embodied experience, right? To like movement, where the students are acting out physically with movement, how to be a robot, and perhaps how to be a programmer as well. And these types of activities are very much aligned with a whole field of research around embodied cognition, where it's essentially, this research is showing that intentionally using movement with our bodies can really support cognitive growth. And so we're experiencing the concept, the skills in our body, before then transferring it over to an object. And that essentially supports language development without actually requiring the child to verbalize or communicate out loud, because they're using symbols as commands. So what we're going to show you, we're going to switch over to another camera here. And Scott's going to act out some embodied linear and grid movement games that we've done with children to help them start to develop a lot of these skills that they then transfer over to robots. So first, we practice embodying directional movements, right? Associating certain commands and symbols with movements. So we start with just a segmented line, right? Where you can see on the floor those foam tiles. There's several individual foam tiles that the children can step on. And so here with this line, we're essentially just working on moving forwards and backwards. Okay, so Scott's here showing you some resources, some tools that we've used, some cards we've used to essentially to give these commands. So Scott's going to go ahead. He's actually just going to program himself where he's going to follow these commands. So he picked the move forward button. So he's going to start on that first spot, and he's going to move forward, and he's going to move forward twice. So he created this code, and now he's going to follow it. So he's going to move forward twice. He's doing it with his body just like the robot would do it on the grid that I showed you before. Now he can move forward again 1 time. So there's the command, and he's taking that step forwards.
I'm gonna reach way back.
Yeah. Now he can, now the new code is that he's gonna move backwards 3 times. So he's gonna practice moving backwards 3 times. And as if you're doing this with a child, you can practice counting those steps forwards and backwards. Another way that you could use an activity like this, instead of using the arrows as symbols or as commands, you can just use colors. So for example, Scott's starting there. He's going to move forwards to the purple, and he can count 1, 2, 3 spaces to the purple spot, right? So when doing an activity like this with a child or a group of children, Scott's there, he's just essentially, programming himself to move forwards and backwards. But when you're doing it with children, one child could be the robot, essentially, and the other child or the adult that the child's with can be the programmer that is giving the commands. And then, you can switch and take turns taking those different roles. Now, once the child has practiced what it means to, move forwards and backwards, now the child can work on a grid. So you can see Scott's creating our grid there. Okay, and this is where now we're going to not only practice moving forwards and backwards, but this is also where we're going to practice turning right and turning left. So there you can see some of the cards we've used that have those different symbols, those different arrows to direct the child on the grid. So here, Scott, he is going to move forwards. So you can just kind of move as you pick a card, as you pick a command, you can do that command. So he picked the turn right card, so he turned right, and now he's going to move forwards, and so on. Again, as perhaps there's one child or one adult picking the cards and giving the commands while the other child is on the grid practicing moving. So all of those activities are really just practicing doing the different movements. Now you can also you can kind of take it a step further with this grid, and you can start to problem solve. So we have our little rabbit friend here. And Scott's going to place the rabbit on the grid. And if Scott starts on that red spot where he's been starting, we need to figure out, okay, how can we program Scott now to get to the rabbit? What are the commands that we need to give Scott one step at a time to get Scott to go to the rabbit? So I want you to take a moment in the chat, and I want you to type in the chat a code to program Scott to reach the rabbit. So if he is starting on that red square and the rabbit's on the purple square, what is a code? What are the commands that we could give him to reach that rabbit? Take a moment in the chat, type one in. Oh, I love that. Someone said that this is just like Candyland. Yeah, it's really similar. And a lot of board games are arranged at, the spaces in a board game are arranged really similarly to like a segmented line or a grid like this. So a lot of board games are using a lot of the same concepts as well. So what's the code? How can Scott get to the rabbit? Is he going to turn right? Is he going to turn left? Is he going to move forwards? Is he going to move backwards? Okay, I'll give you a little bit more time to type in some codes in there. I'm seeing some good ones. All right.
Yeah, I can't see the chat, but are people using kind of different ways
Yeah,
of expressing the
totally.
code? Yeah,
I'm seeing a lot of different ones.
nice.
All right, let's see if all right, so one person, Rosalind, said, move forward 2 times, Scott. 1, 2, turn right. And now move forward 2 times. This was actually a really common one. I saw a lot of similar codes as this one. Thank you, Rosalind, for sharing this with us. He got to the green rabbit. Awesome job. Okay. Now, I want you again in the chat, okay, this time. Let's go ahead and take a moment to create a new code, one that's different from the one you did before. A new code to program Scott to reach the rabbit that has more commands than your previous one. So Rosalind's code had move forward twice. So 1, 2, she said turn and then move forward twice again. That was 5 different commands. Okay. Try and create a code now to program him to move forward with more commands than your previous one.
Move to the rabbit, yeah.
To get to the rabbit. Yes, he's still trying to get to the rabbit.
I want my rabbit.
We're going to give folks there's a little bit of a delay, so we're going to give you a little bit of time to get those ideas in the chat. All right, so let's see. We have, okay. We have, oh, there's so many good ones coming in. All right, this one was different than the other ones. Awesome. So Alana, thank you for sharing this one. We have move forward to the yellow, Scott.
Oh, wow, okay.
Turn right, move to the yellow, forward to the yellow. Turn left, move to the red, turn right. Oh, Scott, our camera just went to sleep.
Okay.
All right, we're back.
We're back.
All right. And move to the purple.
Right.
Great. That was a great one because it used colors, right? Not just the number of steps. Thank you, Scott. So as you can see, there are a lot of different ways that you could have created a code depending on what the goal was, right? So thank you all for sharing your codes. They were really fun to read. Nope. There we go. Okay. All right. All right. So as you can see, you know, when we were working with the kit, you saw how the robot moved in the grid, right? So doing these types of activities, it's really helpful to do them on a grid or on some kind of segmented line, right? So there's so many ways that you can create a grid. You can do it indoors or outdoors with chalk, with tape. You can even use grids that are already there in your classroom or on the floor, like the classroom carpets are often arranged as grids, or a tile floor like in the hallway. So here are just some ideas that you can work with at home or at school to create a grid. So after doing all of these embodied experiences, activities where they're practicing all the different types of movements that they can do, like the robot, just like someone said before, this is like Candyland, right? Here's an example of a board game arranged as a grid that we've used with children, where they've experienced the concept with their body, and now they're taking it to using the same cards and creating codes to now move a game piece. And so here's some other examples of activities that we've also done with children, embodied activities. So identifying and manipulating patterns are really important parts of coding. And so just using your movement and body and dance to create movement patterns is a great way to use and explore that concept. So here again is another activity we've used where there are movement cards that they create patterns with, and then they do them with their bodies. So I'm going to pass it over to Scott now, and he's going to take us into a little reflection.
All right. Thanks, Alejandra. Thanks, everybody, for helping me move around the grid and finding my bunny rabbit. That was awesome. All right. Thanks. So here's a question I'd like you to think about and enter a response in the chat, if you would, please. So the name of this session is Everybody Codes. We really are always engaging in codes everywhere around in our world, in our communities, in our classrooms. So here's the question. What are some ways that we use codes to communicate in our communities and our classrooms? So for example, as I was driving to the office today, there were traffic signals and road signs and stuff like that. So those are codes, and they had meaning for me. So if you could put in the chat some of those codes that we come across maybe already in our classrooms or at just walking around in our everyday lives. I did know somebody asked where they can get these, some of those card resources. We're going to share this PDF of slides with you. Let's see, so go ahead and put some things. What are some codes that you see just in our classrooms and communities as we go through our days? Oh, recipes, look at that, a schedule, calendar recording, yeah. Giving directions, yeah. Hand signals, nice. Yeah, lots of those schedules and routines. A bath, interesting. Coding in the bathtub. Labeling classroom areas, nice. Yeah, so lots of ideas there. We know that early coding really benefits the entire child. And so just thinking of a few of the ways, this is certainly not an exhaustive list, but a few of the ways that children really benefit from practicing coding. With math, there's lots of different levels of abstraction going on. Problem solving, just like with the frog, we deconstruct a problem and restructure it with smaller solvable problems. Sometimes we use recursive or looping behavior. So that's awesome. Computational thinking with sequencing, understanding behavior of both machines and people, and then how to communicate codes with them, designing systems together. Language and communication is a huge one. And just think of all the fluency, all the symbols and words that we've been using during this session and all the words we use in our everyday lives. And they're really abstract, but we build meaning into them. So as we write and we speak those symbols and words, but then also build the interpretive meaning along with that, utilizing feedback loops. Like, is the robot doing what I want it to do? If yes, or even if no, then that's giving us feedback on what's happening there. With social and emotional issues, just building empathy, putting yourself in the place of another student as you march them around the grid, or putting yourself in the place of the robot and taking on that perspective. With storytelling, working together, any kind of embodied experience builds gross and fine motor skills. And play, of course. Yay, play, always play as we're learning. And then creativity. With STEAM, all of the aspects of STEAM, finding connections between those different skill sets. And creativity, we often think about music or performing arts, and those are certainly creative avenues. But creativity, thinking of it just as taking any idea and bringing it to life somehow. It could be making a robot move is a very creative activity. So those are just a few of the ways that coding can really benefit young children. So here's our big takeaway. If you don't take anything away from our time together other than this, here's what it is. It's everybody codes. And what we can do is just be more intentional about recognizing and communicating our codes with children and with each other. So Alejandra, share with us real quickly just a few resources.
Sure. Yeah. So, it's always there's a ton of resources out there, especially on coding, especially for older students, elementary, middle school, and definitely for high school students. But it's always a bit challenging to find things for our youngest little ones. So I wanted to include some books here that do a really good job of introducing coding and computer science language in a very simple, developmentally appropriate way for children. And in these books, they're doing it outside of the context of a computer. They're doing it in using the environment of the child in the book, just like a child might be able in person would be able to very much relate to those characters and what they're in the concepts and skills that they're exploring. So I wanted to include these here for you. You will be getting a copy of this. You should be getting a copy of this power of this presentation. So if you're interested, you can always go back and look at these titles. The first two books there, I would say, are probably more appropriate for our youngest little ones up to like 3-4 years old. The How to Code a Sandcastle, How to Code a Roller Coaster, probably a little bit better for our older students, probably 4 or 5 years old and above. So those are there for you. You can always visit our website. There's some of the activities that we shared with you today are on our website at aimcenter.org. So you can always go there, and some of the other, whatever's not on the website and whatever is not on this presentation will also be shared with you separately as well. So we do have a few minutes, and we wanted to give you a moment in the chat, if you have any questions that you wanted to ask us in the last few minutes, go ahead and type them in the chat.
So a lot of nice comments.
Great.
Appreciate your positive feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But also see if there's any questions you have, feel free to pop them in there. While we're maybe waiting for that, let's just throw up maybe this slide here. So here is our website, aimcenter.org. There's our email addresses if you want to contact us directly. On the AIM Center website, there are actually a wealth of free resources. We do some free play shop and other hybrid and in-person activity events, so you can check those out. And not seeing any other questions pop up. Oh, maybe any books for second or third graders. Actually on the Early Math Project website, I know that there's actually a whole literature collection there, so you might want to check that out. Mm-hmm. They did a great job of kind of assembling some literature connections there for you.
Great.
All right.
Awesome. So before we leave, we just wanted to point out that we did include these 2 articles here. If you're looking, as the adult to read a little bit more about this, the first article there is from the National Association of the Education of Young Children. Have a great article on creating coding stories. So these coding stories do a really great job of integrating literature and storytelling with coding and with robotics. And then there's also an article there, just a short article just on what computational thinking is, if you want to read more about that.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, that's pretty much our time. Alejandra, thanks. This was fun. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. And we will see you at the next, wherever we see you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.